All right, welcome back. Part two, World's Toughest Mudder, Cliff Notes. And we don't know, there could be a cliff in Granbury, Texas. They could bring it back, right?
Yeah, well, or stacks or something like that.
Right. We don't know. Stacks notes, Cliff Notes. What could they have in Texas?
I don't know. They could hopefully they bring back that freaking version of Mutterhorn where we slide down the slide. That was awesome.
Oh,
I love how they
how many times did you get to do that?
I don't know, probably four. It was less because I did a team event, but the thing is that it just cracks me up because they put that in there, and then I don't think they actually tested it with somebody wearing a wetsuit because I'm standing there with I don't know whoever built I can't remember the guy's name that built the obstacle, but he's sitting there in his truck, and I'm like, "Did you test this?" He's like, "Oh yeah, we tested it." I'm like, "Doesn't look like the pit's very long. It looks like we might hit the end of it." He goes, "No, it'll be fine." He said, "We tested it." And I guess they must have tested it with somebody wearing a wetsuit later on because then they dug the pit out that night. I'm like, yeah, I thought that looked awful short.
Yeah, it opened a little bit later because people came flying off like
and hit the end of the ops. I mean, it wasn't very long. I was like, man, I think they're gonna hit the end of that. But yeah. Anyway, it's something. Hopefully they have something badass. That's the key, right?
Hey, honey, I can't find my headphones, so if you find them, let me. My wife has just rolled her eyes because it's an everyday fucking. All right, so welcome to part two. You don't have to have listened to these in order. You can probably kind of listen any way you want, but we might refer to the previous episode, which was gear. This one is going to be nutrition and perhaps pit crew, depending on time. So let's dive in to everything everyone needs to know about proper nutrition for World's Toughest Mudder.
First and foremost, most important thing to remember is you need to practice your own nutrition plan because everybody's different. I mean, my races, if it's funny, if you see my nutrition list, it changes every race because some races I can eat stuff and it's like, oh man, that was great. And then some races I'll borrow something like, man, you know what looks really good? That person's chocolate donuts. The best thing of last year's race was frozen chocolate donuts in the middle of the night. Never had them before at any race. But somebody in our pit group had them sitting on the table. I'm like, man, these things look good. Down a few of those. I'm like, these are phenomenal. I'm having these at every race from now on. But next time, who knows? It might be terrible. But definitely practice your plan. The only way you can practice is during your runs, but then you just never know what might come about during your race. But I remember in 2016, I believe it was, Chris Betcher ends up getting 75 miles. He's pitting right next to me. I'd never eaten a banana before at World's Toughest Mudder, and he's got a thing of bananas. I'm like, hey, Chris, can I have a banana? He's like, sure. Had a banana. I'm like, I don't know, sounded good at the time. Normally eat that. Some people eat bananas all the time. They normally don't agree with me, but for some reason it sounded good. So having a plan in place and practicing that plan is definitely a key. I always tell people real foods should be digested easily. You don't want like something that's really complex. Like most of us probably eat pretty healthy all the time, but healthy foods generally digest more slowly. So, you can have your thing here and there, but eating a cheeseburger during the middle of the worlds is probably not a good idea. But if you eat cheeseburgers all the time and you like to eat them, go ahead, I guess.
Well, listen, you may have watched the award-winning World's Toughest Mudder documentary from last year that we put out.
Yeah, I did watch it. Yeah.
No, I'm saying the listener. I know you watched it. Of course you watched it. You're a real fan of the sport and of me. But what I'm saying is, if you're out there, you watch this video. Like I saw Hannah Carter and Katie eating cookies and pizza. I'm gonna eat cookies and pizza. May not work for you.
I eat that used to be one of my staples was pizza. Miguel Medina, it's his fault. Freaking, he started bringing pizza. I'll never forget. Hunter told the story one time. Miguel brings entire pizza, or no, Hunter brings an entire pizza, I think it is, into the pit, and he gets like one piece because all of his teammates from the whatever, I can't remember the name of their group. What was the name of their team that they won?
Spartan Wolfpack.
Wolfpack, that's it. Yeah. Anyway, they all eat the freaking pizza. So I started eating pizza. It works for me, but it doesn't work for everybody. Tailwind does not work for me. I cannot drink that stuff during races. So some people might.
Yes, but I just want to quickly touch on that. So the phrase that always works is race how you train, train how you race. So
Exactly.
if you're listening to this, it's the first week of September and you're thinking, well, why are you guys putting this out now? Trust me, it's plenty of time to test your food and nutrition. You can go out on a long run this Saturday or next Saturday and spend a couple hours and just see what you like. Now, again, you don't know what you're going to feel like at hour 18, so you should bring options and we'll get into that. But I'm saying don't think you're going to show up and just buy a bunch of stuff that you heard works. Well, I heard this works. I heard this works. I can tell you right now, I could never, I would most likely not eat a pizza. That to me, my stomach would not like it. It's too much. I'm like an old Jewish guy, right? My stomach doesn't do well. So it's too much with the pepperonis and the spices. So anyway, just because you saw somebody do it on a video and it looked cool, don't think you can do it, is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. And there is some research that conflicts this, but I'm going to tell you the general thing that the International Society of Sports Nutrition says how many calories you can digest in an hour. This varies greatly. If you're Dean Karnazes, you can digest more. Ryan Atkins told me he can digest about 300 calories an hour, 300 to 350. That's normal. He's probably on the higher end. And Lindsay said more like 200. Okay, so I've asked them both and they said, okay, that's their range. That is actually the normal range, 200 to 350 calories an hour and about 60 grams of carbs. That's the general recommendation. The thing is that they've studied Navy SEALs over the course of all these years. The guys who perform the best in Hell Week are the guys who can eat the most. I have a friend, Dennis Pape. He can eat anything and not have any issues. So he's going to do better in something like this where he can just eat whatever he wants. He can eat Cheez-Its and, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or whatever he wants to eat, and he's fine. Some people can't do that. So just know that if you're shooting for 300 calories an hour, that's great. If it takes you an hour and a half to do a lap, know that you got to have, 450 calories is approximately what you're going to be able to eat.
You said that pretty fast, and I think that's actually, this is kind of really valuable information, and it's just science. This is like, we're talking about different things that you might like, and everybody is different. There's always exceptions, but I think this is a really good, what you just said is really good. So say that part again.
Yeah. So you're looking for 300 and on average 300 calories an hour, but you got to figure out how many hours it's taking you to do a lap. If you're doing a lap in an hour and a half, maybe you're doing it in 2 hours, you have to make sure that you've got enough food in you for that time frame. So if you're going to eat shot blocks in the middle of the lap and it's taking you 2 hours, okay, that's your 1 hour. But now you're a little bit behind on calories. So when you make it back to the pit, if you've ate a serving shot blocks, is 100 and 120 calories, something like that. Now you still got to get the rest of the calories that you're supposed to be able to get in the other time frame. So it depends on who you are. But if you're shooting for calorie numbers, okay, we're looking at 300 calories an hour and approximately 60 grams of carbohydrates an hour. And again, you can vary a little bit. Some people can eat a little bit more. Some people will eat a little bit less. But that's the science says. And in general, they tell you take in 4 grams of carbs to every 1 gram of protein. That's the science. It absorbs better that way. You want to get some protein, but if you're drinking or eating 40 grams of carbohydrates, then you need about 10 grams of protein. That's the general science. And
I think I think that's a great place to start, because again, everybody's different. Trevor Psychos is just going to literally eat whatever's a jar of pickles and a pizza laying on his fucking floor of his tent, right? He doesn't care.
Yeah.
But if you're new at this, try to follow the science and just see how it goes. And then again, what you can take will change. So I'm a goos and gels in the first few hours guy only. Once we hit hour 6, 7, I need solid food. So that's PB&J. That's maybe a hamburger. That's chicken. Like I said, I can't take, but again, without a lot of spices on it, not super spicy chicken. But I need real food. Some people can go goos and gels the whole time, keep it simple and light, and they pack or they drink most of their calories with Tailwind and goos. I can't do that. Once we hit 6, 7 hours, I need real stuff.
Yeah, Evan Perperis is Perpetuum the whole way. I can't drink Perpetuum sitting here at the table because it tastes like chalky protein powder to me. But he drinks that the whole time. He keeps it fairly simple on what he's eating. I have to mix it all up. My stomach is I'm not built for endurance racing, so my stomach is kind of iffy, and I can go from one thing to another, one race to
Is
another,
that
and I can eat
because you're like 5'1"?
yeah, I'm not quite 5'1". I'm a little bit over that, but no, I'm not built because I'm in a if anybody's ever seen me, I'm a little more muscular than the average person. So I'm built for like bodybuilding, but I've trained myself into doing this. So I burn a lot of sugar for my entire race. The problem is that my stomach does not like a lot of carbohydrates at one time. So if I have to like gradually transition into foods that are more bland throughout the race and stuff like that, no sugary stuff and all that. So I'm burning down my glycogen stores pretty fast. I'm not an aerobic machine like Ryan Atkins or something. Ryan's actually big for an endurance athlete, but you know, your body makeup's going to make up a huge difference. If you weigh 220 pounds and you're heavily muscled, you're going to burn a lot of glycogen. That's just the way it is. If you're Hunter McIntyre, Hunter, I don't know how he does what he does at 200 pounds, but when he's crushing races at 200 pounds and heavily muscled, that's freaking awesome stuff. As far as water intake and fluid intake, like I drink a lot of my calories because it's just easier for me to get them in. I got to get my fluid in anyway. The National Athletic Training Association says you need about 1 liter of water an hour per when you're exercising in the heat. My particular thing, I've always shot for 25 fluid ounces per hour, like a 25, basically 1.5 of those 16-ounce bottles, or a mixture of Gatorade, whatever. But I generally only need about 20. So I've just found that it depends if it's daytime, and again, it kind of varies, but 20 to 25 ounces, if I drink that per hour, I'm fine. I'm peeing about once every 3 hours. So once every couple laps. And that's good. That means I'm hydrated. I have my training partner. He pees like twice a race. Well, I think you should be peeing a little more often than that. But just know that the science says, and this is variable also, but between 20 and 33 ounces of water an hour, or fluid an hour, should be what you're ingesting. And like I said, for me, I'm drinking some Gatorade and some water. I got a bottle of each with me at all times. So that's the general thing. Also know this is a thing that people need to remember, is that when you're eating or drinking your calories during an event while you're exercising, most of the carbohydrates that you're digesting are not going to restoring your muscle glycogen of your legs, so the working muscles that you're using. It's going to making sure that your liver glycogen is topped off. Your body wants to make sure your brain is functioning, so it keeps your blood sugar like pretty even throughout the whole race. And it's not really focusing. It's focusing on keeping you moving. Your body's keeping you moving, and it's focusing on replenishing that blood sugar. Make sure the blood sugar stays high. You don't want to completely bonk, and that's what it's trying to avoid. But your legs may be, burning down glycogen. You're getting weaker and weaker. So hence, at 8 p.m., you can run up Everest, but at 8 a.m., you ain't running up nothing. So you're like, people are like, can you make it? Can you make it? No, can't. And that's just the way it is. So just know that that's the science of it, is that your legs are going to burn down glycogen. Just try to keep as much food in you as you can. And that's really a start for it. And along those same regards, if you're testing your heart rate, you're watching your heart rate during the race, you want your heart rate below 70% of your heart rate max. That means you're mostly aerobic, a complete conversational pace. Now, what pace that is, like we said before, if you're Jenny Overstreet or Hannah Carta or Ryan Adkins or DJ Fox or whatever, they're moving at a pretty good clip in what is considered an aerobic pace, a conversational pace for them, whereas somebody else may be relegated to a power hike. But it should be a conversational pace. If you're breathing heavy, other than that first, few miles where we come out of the gate pretty fast, you're probably going too fast. So 70% of heart rate max, or if you're doing an MAF thing, Maffetone, it's 180 minus your age. Keep that. When in doubt, go easier rather than harder, because it's going to benefit you later on in the race. It's a common thing. People come out of the block too fast, and then they bonk or crash, and they're not doing so well later on in the race. Fat intake, minimize the fat intake. Now you want some to keep you full, but if you're constantly eating heavily fatted foods, it slows digestion down. So that's not going to be a good thing later on. It could cause some diarrhea, could cause other issues. Uh, but you want foods that are pretty easily digested. And if all you're doing is eating peanut butter, I mean, it might work for you. If it works for you, fine. But in general, they say, peanut butter and jelly is pretty good because generally there's a lot of sugar in the jelly and just a little bit of peanut butter if you're talking about like an Uncrustable or something. But if you're eating foods that are heavily fatted, like we just said, cheeseburger, pizza, that type of stuff, you're probably, if you're eating that all the time or a lot of it, you're probably not going to go so well.
Yeah, you got to save that for like 3 a.m. I'm about to be dead and I can look forward to it. And I come in from that, whatever lap that is, in that, 2 to 6 a.m. before the sun comes up, danger zone, like, oh my God, I get a pizza, or oh my God, I get a burger. And again, if you've tested it or you just know you have a fucking iron stomach, go for it. If not, I'd be a little wonky and I'd stay on the safer side. I just looked at what I had for my race and I kind of learned what I like. And I basically gave myself a choice when I came back. It was going to be a PB&J. I had chicken noodle soup and I had cans of ravioli. And now ravioli and chicken noodle soup aren't as good cold, but guess what? I wasn't going to wait in line for the microwave. I just shoveled that shit down. And then depending on my mood, I had kind of one of those three, or trail mix. Those are like my 4 things. If you're new, fucking bring everything. Go to Walmart, break the bank, bring everything, and just have different varieties because you don't know what you'll feel like. If you're doing it with a buddy and you guys can like both have a lot of stuff in your pit, great, because you're going to figure out what you like in the middle of the night.
That's right. That's right. And like I said before, sometimes you have cravings. I never eat ramen. And I came in and saw a dude eating ramen at Minnesota Toughest. It was cold there. And I'm like, that looks really good. I wish I had some ramen. Well, I don't have time to be screwing around for that. So I'm going to go ahead and eat what I got and go. But I'm going to make sure because I didn't have a pit crew in Minnesota, but I'm going to have a pit crew there at WTM. So I'm going to make sure I got some of that just in case. You just never know. So, and that's cheap. And if you don't use it, okay, you can throw it away, whatever you want.
I will say a hot cup of noodles is kind of amazing. And they've been having those in the pits. They've had that in the Tough Mudder gives those away. But in case they don't have it, bring your own. If you want to go hardcore, buy a Jetboil. That way you won't have to wait in line for the microwaves. But I got to say, a cup of noodles in the middle of the night is kind of the best thing in the world.
Yeah, I'm going to give a caveat to that. I think Jetboils are illegal because they produce flame.
Oh, shit. Okay, don't bring a Jetboil. Wait in line for the microwave. Sorry.
They did say that they knew that they ran into, and I don't know how they had this oversight, but anyway, they ran out. They had the line for hot water last year at World Toughest was absolutely ridiculous. And they knew it was going to be cold. I'm like, what are you guys doing? They should have those things, those big containers that they make.
I thought what they did was in the pit, there's basically 2, what do they call those? What do they even call those areas?
Shoot, I don't know.
But it's supposed to have it's had in the past. Once upon a time, it was just a bunch of microwaves that all broke by midnight. Now they put a volunteer there, and it's a huge tent. It's got hot coffee, it's got hot water, it's got a microwave, and like whoever their goo or gel sponsor is, just stuff lying around that you shouldn't rely on. Bring your own. But they did. I know they had cups of hot soup because me and JD's sons were stealing them in Atlanta, and people got mad. Like, stop stealing shit from volunteers. But so I thought they built 2 of them so that either side of the pit you wouldn't have as long a line.
They did, but man, they still had a long line. Like, you got to I was in a team thing, and I woke up and there's 12 people in line waiting in line for hot water, and I'm like, okay, so they had. It's funny. They're waiting in line for hot water, and they had hot cocoa and coffee. I literally ate oatmeal made in coffee.
Nice.
Because I was like, forget it. I'm not waiting for cold. I'm not waiting for hot water. I got hot coffee. Screw it. Give me the coffee. And I just put the oatmeal in it.
Hey, we might be onto something. How was it?
It wasn't bad, but like you said, when you're cold and it's the middle of the night, you're like, I don't give a shit. It'll be okay.
I'm just saying, you get a little caffeine hit, right?
Yeah.
You get the oatmeal or the noodles. I want to try the noodles. If you're listening to this and you try out, again, I wouldn't do it on a 5 o'clock. I would do it in the middle of the night. But that could be good. Coffee flavored noodles could be good.
Yeah, it's probably not as bad as it sounds sitting here. You know, when you get after you've been racing for a while, you know, stuff you normally would not do is like, ah, whatever.
Oh, P.S. We're talking about all the stomach issues. Bring Tums, bring Pepto. We'll save your day. Again, they might have it at the medic tent, they might not. So bring
Yeah,
your own shit.
definitely. I do want to get a thing of caution to Imodium. I remember I was talking to Eric Jenkins about this, who's a doctor, and Imodium during the race and before the race at World's Toughest, because of the time frame, Imodium's job is to slow down the motility of your intestines, so it slows down digestion. While it may keep you from, you know, having diarrhea, which is an issue if you actually you started having diarrhea. Okay, take the Imodium.
Stop saying that word. We have some sensitive ears. Just say going to the bathroom a lot. Okay.
Go to the bathroom, whatever. So the the idea is that if you take it preemptively in a 24-hour race, you could affect your digestion, and that's a problem. So you want to make sure that your digestion is working as good as it possibly can until it's not. And once it's not, then worry about it. Then you can take.
Yeah, I would never take it preemptively. I say take it like you got heartburn going on, then take some.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do take like a Tagamet before the race just in case, and maybe a Gas X or something like that. But I wouldn't take Imodium until you need it. I did have that on my notes, and I mentioned it because you just said that. The other part about nutrition is make sure that you're, and we'll get into this a little bit more with the pit crew. Make sure your pit crew knows your plan and they know what you're going to want. You know, you got to have that. You have a general plan ahead of time, and if they're out on course, maybe the last mile or something, they can see you and say, "Hey, what do you want?" And you can give them an idea. But you got to have a general idea. Okay, this is what I'm going to want every single lap until this time, and you know, because that way they can have stuff ready. If they know you're going to want oatmeal, they got to get that heated up and get it ready. If they don't know until you get there, well, now you're screwing around in the pit and you're getting cold because you're just sitting there. So that type of stuff. So make sure your pit crew knows your plan. But the other part I always have to emphasize, and I do not understand why this is so complicated, because there's a lot of misinformation in the media. Electrolytes are not necessary to prevent cramping. Your cramping is occurring because your muscles are tired, not from dehydration. Dehydration is a minimal cause to cramping. People automatically, that we still hear that, oh, I'm cramping, give me some sodium. No, you're cramping, get vinegar of some sort, whether that be in pickle juice or you get it in mustard, something like that. It's that bitter, that actually really bitter flavor. It will shut off a cramp like that. However, that doesn't mean you don't need electrolytes. What I'm saying is that your muscles are not cramping likely because of you have a lack of electrolytes. Your muscles will get stiff, but the science has shown repeatedly, you can do your research on this. Science has shown that the muscles cramp due to fatigue and temperature control issues, muscle getting too warm, things like that. And we've known this for 15 years. But people still, get some electrolytes. No. That's not necessary. You need to, because I mean, if anybody that's done World's Toughest knows, if you're eating a lot of ramen, you get a lot of sodium, right? There's a lot of sodium in there. It gets to the point between your wetsuit and the sodium intake and all this, your fingers look like big sausages by the end of World's Toughest. You're retaining plenty of water. If your muscles are cramping, that's not the reason. It's the fact that you're just getting tired. So just know that, okay, I need some option that's going to get me out of this, you know, and it could be capsaicin, what the hot shot thing that some people take. Apparently, I mean, I've never used that stuff because it would bother my stomach, but apparently that will work. But pickle juice is like a common thing.
When you're in work situations, do they tell you that you talk too fast?
If I get excited, I do talk too fast. Do you need me to slow down?
I'm saying that I talk really fast.
Yeah.
And so for me to notice it, it means you're at a mile a minute. People that usually listen at 1.5 speed will watch this at 1 speed. And because the information you're giving is very important, and some of it's are words people haven't heard before. So you're doing great. I'm just saying you're like, or some people by this, I'm like, I don't even know what word that is. Capsaicin. What is that?
Capsaicin. So it's the active ingredient in that little hot shot thing. You know, like some of the people take the hot shot. That's what it's called. It's like a shot of a pepper, but it will decrease the amount of cramp. Like I don't know if you take it that it has the immediate effect that like a pickle shot has, but it'll reduce cramping. So that's one of the things. It's funny you say about the podcast thing, because I do listen to podcasts at 1.5 times speed, which is probably why I speak so fast now, right? But so capsaicin or pickle shot or mustard packet, those type of things, that's for your immediate cramping issues. If you have those proper things, those are things you want in your pit at all times. I actually keep a pickle shot with me at all times on course. I generally don't have cramping issues. Every once in a while, I'll have something. I remember at OCRWC in 2021 up in Canada. I mean, not Canada, in Vermont. I had a cramping issue with one of my quads, and then my calf, probably because of the fatigue of the mountain, not because in a 2-hour race I got dehydrated so much, right? So anyway, that's just my thing on that. Oh, the other part about sodium and intake is, this is why Tailwind does not work well for me. It actually isn't Tailwind by itself. It's Tailwind combined with the other food intake. But if you have too much sodium in your gut at any one time, you can get, and I know you just said don't say this, osmotic diarrhea. That is because you have a lot of water pulled into your gut, and then you're going to have issues. So you gotta be careful with too much sodium at any one time. So,
and I'm a big fan of Tailwind, but just not every lap. Don't put it in your pack so you're drinking it constantly. Balance it out. That's all.
Oh yeah, I had issues in 2015, and there are racers that remember me just going nuts about, okay, I'm not eating Tailwind anymore. And I had it at a race in Colorado one time, and that's what they were providing. And I sweat a lot of sodium, and my shirt is caked with sodium, because if I take in a lot of sodium, I sweat a lot of sodium out, and it just gets us. But that's why I stick to other things. But if Tailwind works for you, you know, if you're Chow or one of these other guys that loves it, you know, go ahead and take it. Whatever.
So I used it for my backyard ultra, and because I had practiced with it, I've been running with it long runs, and I loved it. But I realized by like lap 6, so 6th hour in, it was starting to do stuff, and I switched to water. So if I were to do backyard ultra again, I'd go every other lap. So every other hour I would drink some Tailwind, or if I have a pack with 2 waters in it, 1 water, 1 Tailwind, all Tailwind.
Exactly. So like I said, you know that because of testing. Test it out.
There you go.
So like I said, I mentioned the chocolate donuts, Oreos, you know, having some of your the things that make you feel good, whatever those things are. You know, if you're like, oh, you know what, eating a PB&J or a grilled cheese takes me back to the day when I was a kid. You might need that in the middle of the night. So bring some of that stuff. Middle of the night, typically I'll resort to peanut butter M&Ms. Those things go well. Better than peanut M&Ms, just peanut butter M&Ms. Those things go well for me. So, you know, it could be Oreos, it could be Pop-Tarts if you're Amelia Boone, whatever it is. If it makes you feel good, then and you need it in the middle of the night, then go ahead and go to that. I also did want to say that some of these references that I make are referenced in Evan Preparis' Ultra OCR Bible. That is another good reference, because I give a lot of stuff, and we'll give a lot of stuff in here, and he got a lot of stuff in that book. But people just if they're looking for ideas, these are places to go get it. Another thing I also want to mention is, because I get this a lot, is exertional nausea. It's a real thing for a lot of people. You know, you get to a certain point and just everything's not. You're nauseous doing everything. You know, you eat this, it makes you nauseous. Stuff like flat Coke, where you can take a 2-liter bottle of Coke and cook most of the water out of it, and you end up with like 8 ounces of Coke syrup. Flat Coke, ginger ale, even some anti-nausea meds. Those are good things to have in the pit in case you do get nauseous. So those, you definitely want to have some things that'll try to curb that nausea from you. And along the same lines with meds, no ibuprofen. We've talked about this before.
We haven't talked about this before.
Oh, this is like a common thing in any, not just obstacle course racing, any race. If you're exercising, ibuprofen will damage your kidneys. So you don't want to take an ibuprofen. You can take a Tylenol, maybe some aspirin or something like that, but don't take ibuprofen during a race. Yeah, and when you go to Med Tent, they're not going to give you ibuprofen. They might give it to you if you're done racing, but they're not going to give it to you during the race. So just know that That's a big no-no as far as racing is concerned. Those are the general guidelines things. You got any other guidelines? I'm going to go through my list of what I typically bring, but and just some good general options that we usually see at like ultra endurance events. But
yeah, I wanted to come back to my article because I came extremely prepared because again, I've DNF'd a bunch of races, I've done a bunch of ultras, and I kind of knew these are my buckets. These are the things that I know that I like. And again, it can change at any time. You can be really sick of something you love. You might find it something new that you like. PB&J, and I take real PB&J over Uncrustables personally. It's the way I go. I mean, I'll certainly eat some Uncrustables, but if you've got a pit crew, they can make it for you. Hey, when I come out from the next lap, have a PB&J ready. And so I had the PB&J, the soup, the ravioli, and a big giant thing of trail mix. And then I just literally picked from one of those boxes every time. And I don't think I would do it much different today. But that's kind of the things that I like. And I noted in this article that I spent $60 on what I ate, and I only ate $30 of it because I'd had it so dialed in. But spend $100. Like I said, save a little bit, go crazy, extra goos, extra gels, extra everything, different flavors of them. And especially if you haven't practiced with them before. That's my 2 cents on it.
Well, it's funny you say different flavors on it. So I typically I'll eat shot blocks or something like that. Like I just finished a half Ironman, and shot blocks are in a sleeve. You can eat those easily while you're riding, right? So that's one that I would typically go on, like World Stuff, is you can wrench it shut versus like an open bag where it's going to leak water in. But if I eat the black cherry shot blocks, I will throw up within 10 seconds. It is my syrup of Epicac. So like, and people like amazed. If I'm not feeling well and I feel like I need to throw up, I'm like, give me those. And they're like, what? I'm like, give me those and I'm going to go throw up. And it happens like that. And it's probably from previous experience. It's just like drinking an alcohol that you've thrown up all in the past. You can't drink it. Like, I just know that's my Epicac, but definitely have different flavors because some will go down easy and some may not. So you don't want to just, oh, you know what I love? I love the fruit punch flavor. Well, you like the fruit punch flavor at 6 p.m., but at 6 a.m. it's going to make you gag.
Yeah, that's why I said go with a bunch of different flavors, the ones that you've tested. But yeah, that's just the pit food. On the lap is when I would do a goo or a gel, or I'm drinking some calories. Like there was Cellucor on course in 2016. Oh, yeah. So I would get like a cup of water and a cup of Cellucor. That was at the 2.5 mile mark, which for me was about an hour, right? Which sounds crazy that it takes that long, but it does if you're slow and doing penalty loops and all the rest of it. So yeah, definitely don't think, well, I won't need to eat anything on a course because I'm moving pretty quick. You want to put something in a spy belt or something, a goo, a gel, and then you'll know as the night goes on kind of what you like.
Definitely. They did have, I think it was Prime at World Stuff this past year. It was at the 1 aid station right before the Devil's Beard, but and I was drinking that. A lot of times I don't drink that stuff because I don't know who mixed it, and it might be not good. It might be a terrible mixture and be really strong or something. So I'll just drink water if I'm going to drink something on course. But again, it's
I think Logan Paul personally mixed that.
It could be. That's you just never know. It could be that they wanted to see how well we do, so they put some extra stuff in there. But it's. I mean, if you look at back in the day when 2012, when we were at World Stuff, there was nothing better than going into the aid station, which then were warming tents because we had the 12-mile loop or whatever it was. It was really long. We were out there for like 4 hours, but they had those Sharky gummies, which were like frozen because it was so cold, and chicken broth. And those things were like fantastic. So you never know what's going to be fantastic in the middle of the night. You're like, what's going to be great? Frozen gummies. This is going to be awesome. So, but yeah, it just, as long as you're testing the stuff out, you're going to know. Like I said, over my experience, I take a 12-ounce bottle of Gatorade, so a little bottle of Gatorade, and the 16-ounce bottle of water, and I take that on every lap. And once if I start to get nauseous or something, I'll shovel out the Gatorade for ginger ale, and ginger ale has carbonation in it, so when you're running, it's going to freaking bubble out. So I usually leave it just a little bit uncapped, so it doesn't build up pressure. It actually is getting rid of the carbonation. So by the time I hit halfway through the lap, it's usually a flat version of ginger ale. But that's just something I've learned over time. Gummies, I always usually eat gummies because I can like just put them in my mouth and like chipmunk it, not actually chew it, and it just kind of dissolves. I'll eat that during the lap. Like you said, we were talking about oatmeal and ramen. If it's cold outside, something to get you warm when you're in the pit. Another thing, because a lot of times I've done this without pit crew, like easily eaten foods like Fuel for Fire, which comes in like a pouch. Like it's like yogurt, but it doesn't need to be refrigerated, in a pouch. And then NOLA Superfoods. Those are easily, eaten foods. You can pop it open, squeeze in your mouth, take off. If you start getting nauseous, like Ritz crackers or Pringles, those are things that are kind of salty, but easily digestible. Like I said, we talked about pizzas. One of the things that they always offer at ultra events are turkey wraps. Just plain deli turkey in like a small wrap. And, it's like a finger food that you can eat, but it usually goes down pretty easy. And I found those things work pretty well. I can get nauseous on those too, but those are simple things that somebody can just bring with them. You said PB&J, Uncrustables. One thing I did find that I have a problem with peanut butters too, for me, like when I'm racing, like, so it makes me want to gag. But Bobo Bars makes a PB&J. It's kind of like an Uncrustable, but everything is mixed inside of it. So the peanut butter is not actually like dense peanut butter. It's actually mixed in there. And then they have a little bit of jelly in the middle of it. That goes down well for me. I don't like the Uncrustable does not go down. And then have an energy drink. If they've got Reign or something, energy drinks. If I drink a Reign in the middle of a race, I'm going to throw it up, and I'm not going to make it very fun.
As would I.
So I can eat caffeine pills though. Caffeine pill I can throw down and it'll be okay. But if I drink an energy drink, that does not do well. So that is something you will need in the middle of the night. You start getting tired, you don't want to be tripping and falling on your face. I've done that before, so not too much fun. But those are the general things things to remember as far as nutrition. Anything else you need to add? You think?
No, I think we're good. I think we can include a bunch of stuff in the links again. So if you're listening to this, there'll be links on the podcast, and if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be links with all this fun stuff.